The Doctor and Donna are back once again in wild Blue Yonder, where they find themselves stranded on a spaceship with no TARDIS to help them. This is such a classic setup for a story, our companions just walking around an unknown location, trying to piece together what's going on. I continue to be fascinated by RTD's unconventional choices for a Doctor Who 60th anniversary special, delivering something nobody expected and which is totally unprecedented in the history of Doctor Who. Of course, we have had returning faces before, but to have a whole adventure between a returning TARDIS duo, one which almost feels as though it's plucked right from their original era, it's a distinctive and unique choice. It's a special that doesn't seem concerned with the assumed celebratory nature of returning faces and some kind of a big story in the vein of The Day of the Doctor or other anniversary specials, but one that goes back to basics for a simple and familiar story. It's not that Wild Blue Yonder is doing anything groundbreaking, but it is quite effective in what it is aiming to accomplish. This is a relatively straightforward story of the Doctor and companion stranded in an unknown place, with a fairly unique monster to keep things fresh and interesting. It's honestly hard to discuss too much about this story without diving into spoilers, so consider that your warning, but I think this one does a good job at easing you into the creepiness. Things start out fine enough, and then as you get stuck in this situation alongside the Doctor and Donna, things start to unravel in a slightly unnerving way. An empty spaceship, no life signs on board, stuck at the edge of creation, it's captivating in its focus within this simple setup. One of the most effective scenes to me was when we first get introduced to the No Things, where the Doctor seemingly returns to Donna as she becomes emotionally vulnerable with him. There's enough off about his entrance that some audience members are going to be able to clock that something is wrong with this moment, but it's treated with so little importance that it's very easy to not notice. But once we cut back to David Tennant in the other location, it's a little jarring. For a moment, you could easily mistake it for a clumsy or jarring editing decision, but things quickly become apparent. I loved the way those two scenes played side by side, allowing you to get sucked into the uncertainty of what is going on and being privy to something being wrong before our characters are, without a full understanding of what that something is just yet. And the trajectory of this story works so well, with the Not Things struggling to fully capture the identities of the Doctor and Donna, but getting closer and closer throughout the episode. The long arms were a great visual too, showing one of the physical manifestations of these creatures' attempts to become our lead characters. It's such a strong and familiar concept with unique qualities to it. These things that aren't things, which exist on the edge of reality, trying to grasp the fundamentals of our universe and understand what it is to actually exist as we know it. It's just such an effective Doctor Who monster and quite well realized. I love that they do exist in this intangible way, one that can't fully be explained or understood. I loved the moment when the Not Doctor realizes that when he lets go of his tie, it's supposed to still exist, something so fundamental to our understanding of life that these beings never even considered. It's such a great moment which highlights just how big of a difference there is between them and our characters. Notably, they do seem to be extremely powerful, and in an interesting way, their understanding of what is going on is what limits them the most. They don't know that the ship is turning into a bomb, and as soon as they do, it becomes incredibly easy to stop the countdown, or rather, it would have been had the Doctor not sped it up. I really liked that dynamic. Beings of unbelievable power that can't fully exercise that power due to their lack of knowledge and understanding of this reality. And it does come to a head in a quite great way when they are able to get under the Doctor's skin enough to make him think through what's going on here, because they know they can trick him like that, and they also know that they can't quite figure it out on their own. That is such a great dynamic to watch unfold throughout this episode, and the more I talk about them, the more impressed I am with the Not Things as villains of the show. They just work so well for the purpose that is needed. There's also a couple of great character moments that come out of this episode. Good advantage is taken of the fact that these foes are reflections of our main characters. What if a villain was a reflection of our hero? I know, it's not a novel concept whatsoever, but it's used often for a reason, because it can reveal a lot about our lead. The scene in which the Doctor reacts to the Not Donna, knowing that he isn't from Gallifrey, is so great, and the way it tricks him into this moment of deep vulnerability is so perfect. Tennant's 10th Doctor has often been emotionally distant, refusing to talk with companions about some extremely important things, and to see his 14th Doctor tricked into a moment where he does, it was just so beautifully put together. This, of course, ties into the moment where he talks about the Flux and his role in being unable to stop it from wiping out half of the universe. Or at least that's what seems to be implied during this episode. I don't want to sidestep into a conversation about Flux because then we'd be here all day, but it's so great to see this emotional vulnerability from this character, and Tennant plays it so well. The scene after he realizes he wasn't actually this vulnerable in front of the real Donna gets incredibly angry and then simply says, "Good?" Well, it's a damn good scene. Realizing his friend isn't burdened with the knowledge of everything he experienced, and that he hasn't exposed his vulnerabilities in that way, he says good. It's a really simple line that says so much, and Tennant very much sells it. Look, it was a really solid, well-made episode that proved quite engaging and effectively creepy with great character moments. Is it the best thing since Heaven Sent? No, of course it isn't. I know people are having vastly different reactions to this episode, with some finding it dull and others finding it to be an utter masterpiece, but as usual, I do fall somewhere in the middle. It's good. I liked it. When it comes to things that weren't fully working in the story, I largely have to point towards the opening 10 or so minutes. I understand the functional purpose of what it's doing, setting the tone in one place and then taking it to another. I just think a lot of it was handled in a slightly clumsy way. For one, the Children in Need-esque opening did not work at all for me. RTD's attempts at humor in these new specials can at times come across as incredibly forced and unnatural, and I hate to say it, but that's how I felt during this too. Something about the word mavity just reeks of unnaturalness in a very unfunny way. I know some people found that hysterical, but to me it felt like Davies just trying too hard to be funny, when funny is often best in these kinds of shows when it comes up in these unexpected ways from the characters. But look, comedy is so subjective. If you found this funny, that's obviously just fine. I just didn't, and it immediately took me out of the story. But it's not just the opening scene. Donna and the Doctor do have the occasional line thrown throughout the script that feels off. I really don't want to be saying this. I don't want this to be true, but I think the comedy throughout here is by far one of the weakest elements, if not the weakest. And shifting gears a little, I do want to address something that is to me of great importance, and that is the death of Donna Noble. In The Star Beast, Donna died, or at least for a good minute it seemed like she did. At the end of Wild Blue Yonder, she came incredibly close to it when the Doctor mistook the Not Donna for the real Donna, which, quick aside, is a pitch-perfect note to end the arc of the Not Things, with one of them coming so close to being the real Donna that it tricks the Doctor himself. But back on topic, the idea of Donna's death seems to be at the forefront of these specials. It's something that we can't go a single episode without being reminded of. Now, if one is to look at the history of modern Doctor Who, you could make a case that no main companion has outright died. Rose is trapped in another dimension until she isn't. Martha leaves the TARDIS to become a soldier. Donna has her memories wiped. Amy and Rory get sent into the past to live out the rest of their lives. Clara does fully die, but gets to live out some adventures with me before her time comes to an end. Bill dies, but becomes a water ghost or whatever happened in the Doctor Falls. And Graham, Ryan, Yaz, and Dan all make it home safe. Of the tragic endings, most are twisted in some way to become less tragic, hence why Donna's ending is one of the absolute strongest in the entire show. So for her to be back now, and for the show to be so aware of the possibility of her death, how fitting would it be? Both for this moment in the show, and also in some respects as a commentary on the show's inability to let things die. For the Doctor to reunite with her, allow them to travel on 3 brief adventures together before, bam, she dies. I think it would be incredibly fitting as an end for this character, and the only way to fully justify bringing her back in the first place. With the ease that there was fixing the meta-crisis remembering problem, there needs to be seismic consequences, and this is one of the only ways that would work. I really do think it would be right for the show to kill her off, and I do hope it goes in that direction. Having said that, no, I don't necessarily think Russell T Davies actually has any plans of doing that. The honest truth is that I think he's drawing attention to her death because he wants to create a moment in the giggle when the Doctor has to protect her from death, or undo her death, sacrificing himself in the process. I mean, that's classic Doctor heroism, and it plays into the themes of these specials in a more hopeful and less depressing way, so it seems a lot more likely. Is that actually what's going to happen? I don't know. I really couldn't say. But I think something in that vein is probably a better bet than my hope that Donna dies. And the reason I want her dead is not because I hate the character. She is a great character. I just think that actions should have consequences. And with the undoing of her original tragic fate, this would be just about the best path forward. But hey, that's just my opinion, and I know that not everybody is going to agree with me on that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that as well. Although I can't get to everything in this episode, I do need to discuss the appearance of the beloved Wilfred Mott, one of the best characters in the show. I was just so utterly delighted to see him reappear in here and found his moment alongside the Doctor and Donna to be nothing short of beautiful. Of course, with the recent passing of Bernard Cribbins, it does become even more meaningful and bittersweet to see this character on screen, and I do think it's lovely that the show was able to give him the opportunity to come back. As he said in a behind-the-scenes interview, it's not that he was retired, he was just in his 90s and didn't get a lot of acting opportunities. So as small of a role as this was, it does mean a lot that he was able to be in this show once more in its celebratory year. He may have only appeared in a few episodes, but he's still one of the show's most notable characters in my eyes, and I loved seeing him return. Overall, I found Wild Blue Yonder to be a strong, effective story that shows RTD's strengths in character and story structure, boasting a solid villain, an enjoyable TARDIS duo, and some great character moments. This episode succeeded in most of the ways it needed to. It's familiar yet bold, and eerie while also being silly, working best in its focus on our characters trapped in this situation. I had a good time with this one, and I'm going to give Wild Blue Yonder a rating of 8.25 out of 10. And that does it for today, everybody. That is the second of 3 60th anniversary specials. Feel free to leave your thoughts down below if you so wish. I don't think this is going to be that controversial of a take in terms of the episode. I just think I fall in between where a lot of people are. You know, some people didn't enjoy this one very much, and a lot really did. And for my money, it's a good episode, and I liked it, and I can't wait to see where we go next time. Russell T Davies has a bit of an interesting thing when it comes to resolutions. You know, sometimes he can be incredibly effective at them, and at other moments, he does drop the ball a little bit. So I'm very curious how it's all going to come to a head in the 10th Doctor's Regeneration episode. Oh, the 10th. I said the 10th because it's David Tennant, but it's actually the 14th Doctor. So I'm really curious to see how that all plays out, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So I hope to see you soon for a review of The Giggle, but if not, that is totally cool, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and have a lovely week.